Hi there, Awana kids. I am Pastor Carlos, and welcome to this week's Counsel Time. One of the major themes in Paul's letter to the Ephesians is that of walking. When you think Ephesians, think walk or think walking. Not physical walking, but spiritual walking. Paul uses the term walk 7 times throughout his letter. Evidently, Paul is concerned about how we as believers in Christ live our lives. And we see this in Ephesians 4:17 through 24. I am entitling today's devotion, The Way to Walk, and we will consider 5 declarations regarding the way every believer should walk. 5 declarations, and let us begin with declaration number 1. Walk not as a non-believer. Paul declares in Ephesians 4:17 to 19, "This I say therefore, and affirm together with the Lord, that you walk no longer just as the Gentiles also walk, in the futility of their mind, being darkened in their understanding, excluded from the life of God, because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the hardness of their heart. And they, having become callous, have given themselves over to sensuality for the practice of every kind of impurity with greediness." Paul makes it clear that we are not to walk as the Gentiles walk. Gentiles, this is a reference to non-believing Gentiles. Paul clearly has in mind non-believing Gentiles. Paul then provides 9 descriptions of how these Gentile non-believers walk. And I'm going to give you these 9 descriptions. Number 1, futility of mind. This speaks of being devoid of truth, absence of truth. Such people reject God and the truth of the gospel revealed in God's life-giving and life-saving word. This dovetails with description number 2, darkened in understanding. Those who reject the gospel are darkened in their understanding. And this makes sense. The God who is light has revealed himself through the gospel, and those who reject the gospel are rejecting the light by which they can see. By rejecting the light, they are darkened in their understanding. They walk in the darkness. And this brings us to description number 3. Non-believers are excluded from the life of God. They have no spiritual life. They are separated from God, who is the source of life. Description number 4, ignorance. This speaks of a lack of knowledge. Non-believers lack the knowledge they need by which they can walk in a manner worthy of the Lord. Description number 5, hardness of heart. Non-believers suffer from the disease of hard-heartedness. Their hearts are hard, they are dulled, they are blunted, unable to perceive the truth of God and the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. When they hear the gospel, they are not moved. They are indifferent to the magnificent grace of God as revealed through the gospel of Jesus Christ. And coupled with their hardness of heart, we come to description number 6, callous. The callous person is unable to feel. The callous person fails to experience the proper emotion. The gospel should move us. It should impact our emotions. It should affect the way we feel. It should fill us with joy. It should move us at times to tears as we consider the incomprehensible grace and mercy of Almighty God. But the callous person is unmoved. Description number 7, the non-believer gives himself over to sensuality. This refers to unbridled, uncontrolled sinful desire. The non-believer rejects God's call to holy and obedient living. Instead, the non-believer is given over to sensuality. They are completely under the spell of sinful desire. Such a person dives into the cesspool of sin and is happy to do so. And this brings us to description number 8. The non-believer walks in impurity. The text says he gives himself over to every kind of impurity. His wicked walk is marked by all sorts of sin. And such commitment to sin is ever intensifying, as we see in description number 9, greediness. The non-believer is marked by greed. This is a desire for more. The non-believer is never satisfied. He ends up wanting more and more of what his sinful and impure heart desires. These are 9 descriptions of the non-believer, and Paul commands us as believers not to walk as these Gentile non-believers walk. With this, we come to declaration number 2 regarding the way every believer should walk. Declaration number 2, walk according to the truth you have been taught about regarding Christ. Walk according to the truth that you have been taught about regarding Christ. Paul goes on to say, but you did not learn Christ in this way, if indeed you have heard him and have been taught in him, just as truth is in Jesus. Paul reminds his readers about the truth regarding Jesus that they have already been taught. Paul wants his readers to recall the truth they have been taught and to walk according to that truth. And what is the truth? The truth is that Jesus died on a cross for sinners, was raised bodily from the dead, and ascended to heaven and sat down at the Father's right hand. The truth is that through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, sinners are forgiven their sin and set free from the power that sin has over their lives. Therefore, the sinner is to walk as one who has been set free. In other words, believers are to walk according to the truth they have been taught in Christ. Well, let us now turn to declaration number 3. Walk by putting off the old self. The text goes on to say that in reference to your former manner of life, you lay aside, you take off the old self, which is being corrupted in accordance with the lust of deceit. This passage tells us to lay aside the old self. We are no longer to live according to our former manner of life. The gospel of Jesus is designed to make a difference in our life. Going back to the previous point, we are to live as if we believe we have been, through the gospel, set free. We are to put off the old sinful self. We are to lay aside sin. But it is not enough for us to put off the old self. And this brings us to declaration number 4. Walk by renewing your mind. Hear the text. Be renewed in the spirit of your mind. We must allow ourselves to receive and embrace truth, including the truths that Paul has already communicated in this letter. And by receiving such gospel truth, we are to experience renewal. Our spiritual renewal runs through our minds. Our thoughts affect our behavior. God is calling us to an inner renewal, a renewal that is birthed in the inner man and results in a transformed life. The way we think matters. Let us walk by renewing our mind, and such a mind renewal is foundational for declaration number 5. Walk by putting on the new man. Paul declares in chapter 4, verse 24, that we are to put on the new self, which in the likeness of God has been created in righteousness and holiness of truth. Friends, young friends, if you are in Christ, then you have a new self, and you are to put on that new self. You are to be dressed up in that new self. You are to walk according to your new self. And that new self of you is in the likeness of God and has been created in righteousness and holiness of truth. Your new self is righteous. The idea here is that you have been clothed in the righteousness of Christ. He has taken your rags and dressed you up in his own riches. Your new self is holy, righteous, and without blame. Additionally, your new self has been created in holiness of truth. And do you see that? The source of your new self is the truth. I believe Paul has the gospel in mind here. It is through the gospel that you have a new self, and it is through this precious gospel that you are to walk. Walk by putting on the new self. So we have considered 5 declarations regarding the way every believer should walk. Walk not as a non-believer. Walk according to the truth you have already been taught, the gospel truth. Walk by putting off the old self. Walk by renewing your mind, and walk by putting on the new man. Well, may the Lord help you to walk in the way every believer should walk. And thank you so much for listening, and may the Lord greatly bless each and every single one of you.